Chapter 1. The Calculated Life. The spreadsheet mocked Nora Hartley from her laptop screen, each red cell a tiny accusation. 3 years of meticulous planning, 18 months of execution, and her dream gallery was hemorrhaging money faster than she could count. She pressed her fingers against her temples, the fluorescent lights of the 24-hour diner doing nothing for the headache building behind her eyes. It was 2 a.m, and she was the only customer besides the drunk couple arguing in the corner booth. "More coffee, honey?" The waitress Diane, according to her name tag, appeared with a pot that had been sitting on the burner since midnight. "Please." Nora pushed her cup forward, even though the last thing her jangling nerves needed was more caffeine. But coffee was cheaper than the wine she actually wanted, and every dollar mattered now. Diane refilled the cup and lingered, her kind eyes taking in the scattered papers and Nora's rumpled blazer. Rough night. Rough year. Nora managed a tired smile. "But I'm fine, really." The lie tasted bitter. She wasn't fine. She was 30 days from losing everything. After Diane moved away, Nora returned to the numbers that refused to add up differently no matter how many times she rearranged them. The Hartley Gallery, named after her late father, funded by his life insurance policy, and built on his belief that she could make something beautiful, was failing. Not because the art was bad, not because she lacked vision, but because Marcus Chen, the billionaire developer who'd bought the building 3 blocks away, had turned the entire neighborhood into a construction war zone. Dust, noise, detours, and blocked streets had driven away her foot traffic. Her regular clients couldn't reach her. New customers didn't know she existed behind the scaffolding and orange cones. She'd tried reasoning with Chen's company. She'd tried negotiating. She'd tried everything except what her best friend Sasha kept, suggesting showing up at one of his properties and making a scene. "You're too polite," Sasha had said last week. Men like Marcus Chen don't respond to polite, they respond to force. But Nora wasn't the force type. She was the plan type, the organized type, the woman who color-coded her closet and never left anything to chance, which was why, at 2:47 a.m., on a Tuesday in October, she was sitting in a diner calculating exactly how many days she had before the bank foreclosed. 32. 32 days to save her father's legacy. Her phone buzzed. Sasha's name lit up the screen. "Still awake?" "Unfortunately. Come to Quantum. You need a drink and I need to see a friendly face. This crowd is exhausting." Nora glanced down at her coffee-stained blouse and wrinkled slacks. Quantum was the city's most exclusive nightclub, the kind of place where people like Marcus Chen spent more on a single bottle of champagne than Nora earned in a month. Not dressed for it. "When has that ever stopped you? Doors open. Ask for me." Nora hesitated. The rational part of her brain, the part that had kept her safe and stable for 30 years, said to go home, get some sleep, and tackle the problem fresh in the morning. But another part, a smaller part that sounded suspiciously like her father's voice, whispered, "What's the harm in one drink?" She looked at the spreadsheet one more time. The numbers hadn't magically changed. "Check, please," she called to Diane. 20 minutes later, Nora stood outside Quantum, second-guessing everything. The building gleamed with brushed steel and mood lighting, and the line of beautiful people waiting to get in stretched around the block. She clutched her worn leather purse and felt like an imposter. But Sasha had said the door was open. Nora approached the mountain of a man guarding the velvet rope. "I'm here to see Sasha Volkov." He looked her up and down, taking in her decidedly unglamorous appearance, and spoke into his earpiece. A moment later, he unclipped the rope. 3rd floor, private lounge. The interior was all dark wood, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of understated luxury that cost a fortune to achieve. Nora felt every eye on her as she made her way to the elevator, her sensible flat silent against the marble floor. The 3rd floor opened into a glass-walled lounge overlooking the city, smaller, more intimate than the chaos below. It was filled with people who looked like they belonged in magazine spreads. Sasha waved from a curved sofa near the windows, her silver dress catching the light. "You came." Sasha pulled her into a hug that smelled of expensive perfume. "And you look terrible. Perfect. You need this." "I really don't. Vodka martini?" Sasha told the approaching waiter. "Dirty. And keep them coming. Sasha, Nora." Her friend's voice turned serious. "You've been running yourself into the ground for 3 years. One night. Let me give you one night where you're not drowning in spreadsheets and stress." The fight went out of her. Maybe Sasha was right. Maybe she did need this. "One drink," Nora conceded. "That's my girl." Sasha linked their arms. Now let me introduce you to some people who might actually buy art instead of just looking at it. For the next hour, Nora let herself be swept into Sasha's world. She met a tech entrepreneur who collected modern sculpture, a fashion designer interested in commissioning pieces, and a real estate attorney who actually remembered her gallery from before the construction started. The martini helped. So did the second one. By the time Sasha excused herself to take a call, Nora felt almost human again, warm and loose in a way she hadn't experienced in months. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights stretched below like a carpet of stars. Somewhere in that sprawl was her gallery, sitting dark and empty. Quite a view. The voice came from behind her, deep, slightly amused, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Nora turned and found herself looking up at a man who seemed to have been assembled from contradictions. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but he'd loosened his tie and rolled his sleeves to his elbows. His dark hair was artfully disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. But it was his eyes that caught her, sharp and assessing, the color of aged whiskey, holding intelligence and something else. Something dangerous. It is, she agreed, turning back to the window. She wasn't in the mood for whatever pickup line was coming next. You don't belong here. Nora's spine stiffened. Excuse me? That wasn't an insult. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. Just an observation. Everyone else here is performing. You're actually looking at the view. Maybe I'm just a better actress. No. He studied her reflection in the glass. You're terrible at pretending. I've been watching you for the past 20 minutes. Every time someone mentioned money, you flinched. Heat rose in her cheeks from embarrassment or the vodka. She wasn't sure. That's creepy. That's honest. He extended his hand. Marcus Chen. The name hit her like a bucket of ice water. Nora spun to face him fully, her mind suddenly razor-sharp despite the alcohol. Marcus Chen, the man who was destroying her life, stood less than 2 feet away, looking at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Nora Hartley, she said automatically, taking his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and she felt the calluses on his palm, unexpected on a billionaire developer. Hartley. His brow furrowed. That's familiar. It should be. You're killing my gallery. The words escaped before she could stop them. So much for Sasha's networking opportunities. But something about this man, about the way he'd peeled back her defenses with a few observations, made her want to be equally direct. Marcus didn't release her hand. If anything, his grip tightened slightly. Explain. The Hartley Gallery, 3 blocks from your Valencia Street project. You've turned the entire neighborhood into a disaster zone. No customers can reach me. I'm 30 days from foreclosure because of your construction. You're that gallery. Recognition flickered across his face. The one that's been sending letters. 17 letters. 3 phone calls. 2 meetings with your assistant, who assured me someone would contact me. Nora pulled her hand free. No one ever did. I don't read every piece of correspondence that crosses my desk. Clearly. They stared at each other, and Nora watched something shift in his expression from casual interest to focused attention. It felt like being caught in a spotlight. Tell me about your gallery, he said. Why? So you can feel better about destroying it? So I can understand what I'm destroying. He gestured to the sofa. Sit. Talk. I'll listen. I don't need your pity. Good. I'm not offering it. Marcus moved to the bar and returned with 2 glasses of amber liquid. I'm offering you 10 minutes of my attention. What you do with it is up to you. Nora knew she should walk away. This man was everything she despised about the modern development industry, someone who saw buildings and profit margins instead of communities and people. But he was also the only person who could save her gallery. She took the glass and Saturday. For the next 15 minutes, because she went over, and he didn't stop her, Nora told him about her father, about his dream of creating a space where emerging artists could show their work without the crushing gallery fees that kept so many talented people invisible, about using his life insurance money to make that dream real, about 3 years of careful building, of nurturing relationships with artists and collectors, of slowly establishing herself in the community, and about watching it all crumble because Marcus Chen wanted to build luxury condos. He listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Your father was David Hartley, he said finally. The photographer. Nora blinked. You know his work? I have 3 of his pieces. The Urban Shadows series. Marcus leaned back, studying her with new interest. He was brilliant. I didn't know he had a daughter. He kept his private life private. Nora's throat tightened. He died 4 years ago. Heart attack. I'm sorry. The words were simple but felt genuine. Nora took a sip of her drink scotch, smooth and expensive, and let the burn ground her. What do you want from me? Marcus asked. Access to the building. Proper signage directing customers around the construction. Compensation for lost revenue. The list came easily. She'd rehearsed it 100 times. And to finish your project faster so the neighborhood can recover. The first 3 I can do. The 4th is impossible. We're already on an accelerated schedule. Hope flickered in her chest. The first 3 would be enough. If I can get customers back in, I'll have my people contact you tomorrow. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. Nora rattled it off, barely believing this was happening. Marcus Chen was actually going to help her. After months of being ignored, she'd gotten through to him in 15 minutes. Thank you, she said. Really, I know I came on strong, but you came on honest. Marcus stood, and she rose with him. It's refreshing. Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. I'm too tired to lie anymore. Good. Don't start now. He stepped closer, and suddenly the air between them felt charged. Tell me something, Nora Hartley. Do you believe in instinct? The question caught her off guard. I believe in planning. In logic. That's not what I asked. His eyes held hers, and Nora felt something shift beneath her feet, as if the careful, controlled world she'd built was suddenly less solid than she'd thought. Sometimes, she admitted, when logic fails, logic always fails. Marcus reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture surprisingly tender. It's instinct that tells the truth. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. She'd come here angry, desperate, ready to fight. And now she was standing too close to Marcus Chen, feeling things she had no business feeling. What is your instinct telling you right now? She whispered. That I should kiss you. The words hung between them, impossible and electric. Nora's rational mind screamed at her to step back, to thank him for his help and leave while she still had her dignity intact. But that small voice, her father's voice, whispered, "What's the harm? This is insane," she breathed. Marcus smiled, slow and dangerous. Then he captured her lips with his, one hand sliding into her hair, the other wrapping around her waist to pull her close. The kiss was nothing like she expected. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming and sure, as if he'd been thinking about this since the moment he saw her. And God help her, Nora kissed him back with 3 years of frustration and fear, and desperate loneliness pouring out of her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "The best things always are," he murmured. Chapter 2. Morning after madness. Nora woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar floor-to-ceiling windows and the immediate gut-clenching realization that she'd made a terrible mistake. She bolted upright in the massive bed, her heart pounding. The silk sheets pooled around her waist. She was wearing an oversized men's t-shirt that smelled like expensive cologne and poor decisions. Her clothes from last night were folded neatly on a nearby chair. Her shoes sat beneath them, paired with geometric precision. Memory crashed over her in mortifying. Waves. The kiss. The second kiss. Marcus suggesting they leave. Her saying yes without thinking, without planning, without engaging any of the caution that usually governed her life. The elevator ride to his penthouse, his mouth on her neck. His hands, oh God, Nora whispered, pressing her palms against her burning face. "Good morning." She yelped and spun to find Marcus leaning against the bedroom doorframe, holding 2 coffee cups. He'd showered, his dark hair was still damp, and wore jeans and a soft gray sweater that made him look dangerously approachable, like a regular person instead of the billionaire who'd kissed away every ounce of her common sense. "I didn't, you were." Nora clutched the sheet to her chest even though she was fully dressed in his shirt. "What time is it?" 7:30. He crossed the room and offered her one of the cups. "Coffee. Black, because you struck me as a black coffee person. But I have cream and sugar if I'm wrong." "Black is fine." She took the cup with shaking hands, acutely aware that her hair probably looked like a bird's nest, and she definitely had mascara smudges under her eyes. "I should go." "Should you?" Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, maddeningly comfortable while she was having an internal crisis. "Or do you want to run because you did something spontaneous and now you're terrified?" "I'm not terrified," Nora. His voice gentled. You're gripping that coffee cup like it's a life preserver. She looked down. He was right. Her knuckles were white against the dark ceramic. Last night was... She couldn't finish the sentence. What was it? A mistake? The most incredible experience of her life? Both? Unexpected. Marcus supplied. Intense. Real. Insane. We covered that. He smiled, and she hated how her traitorous stomach flipped. Several times, if I recall. Heat flooded her face. I don't do this. I don't go home with men I barely know. I don't... Lose control? Marcus set his own cup on the nightstand and shifted closer. Let yourself feel something without calculating the consequences first? Stop analyzing me. Can't help it. You're fascinating. He reached out and gently freed a strand of her hair that had gotten caught in her collar. Most people who come into my life want something from me. Money. Connections. Status. You wanted me to stop ruining your life. And then you kissed me anyway. You kissed me first. Fair point. His thumb brushed her cheek, and Nora fought the urge to lean into the touch. For what it's worth, I don't do this either. Bring women to your penthouse? Spend the night talking instead of... He paused, his eyes dancing with amusement. Let's just say last night was full of surprises. Good ones. Nora's mind snagged on that detail. They'd talked. For hours, actually, once the initial wildfire of attraction had burned down to something deeper. She'd told him about her dreams for the gallery, her fear of failing her father's memory. He'd told her about building his company from nothing, about being the son of immigrants who'd expected him to become a doctor and his choice to disappoint them. We barely slept, she said, the memory filtering back through her panic. 3 hours, maybe. Marcus stood and offered his hand. Come on. I make terrible pancakes, but my omelets are acceptable. And we should talk about your gallery. Right, the gallery. The actual reason this whole insane night had happened. Nora let him pull her up, too rattled to argue. She excused herself to the bathroom, a marble and chrome palace that probably cost more than her annual rent, and tried to make herself presentable. But the woman staring back from the mirror looked different. Her eyes were brighter, her lips slightly swollen, her entire face softer somehow. She looked like someone who'd spent the night wrapped in Marcus Chen's arms, which she had, technically, though they'd both kept their clothes mostly on after that first explosive kiss. Get it together, Hartley. You came here for business. Focus on that. When she emerged, Marcus had set 2 places at the kitchen island. The penthouse's open-plan design meant the kitchen flowed into a living area that showcased those stunning windows. The morning sun turned the city below into a watercolor of gold and shadow. This view, she murmured, drawn toward the windows. It's why I bought the place. Marcus cracked eggs into a bowl with practiced efficiency. That and the proximity to my office. I'm terrible at work-life balance. Living this close means I can pretend I have a life outside the company. Do you? Nora turned to watch him cook. It was strangely intimate, seeing him in his personal space, doing something as mundane as making breakfast. Have a life outside work? I have interests. Art, architecture, the occasional book if I'm not falling asleep on page 3. He poured the eggs into a pan. But no, not really. I'm married to Chen Development. It's all I've built for the past 10 years. That sounds lonely. It is. He met her eyes across the kitchen. But then, you understand that better than most. She did. The gallery had consumed her life just as thoroughly. She couldn't remember the last time she'd gone on a date, seen a movie, done anything that wasn't directly related to keeping her business alive. Why haven't you dated? Marcus asked, apparently reading her thoughts. Who says I haven't? The way you kissed me last night. Like you were starving. Nora's face heated again. You're very direct. I find it saves time. He plated the omelets, which looked professional, not acceptable, and brought them to the island. So I was engaged once. The word surprised her. She never talked about James. 3 years ago. He left 2 months before the wedding. Marcus sat beside her, his expression serious. His loss. He said I was married to my father's ghost, that I cared more about the gallery than building a life with him. Nora picked up her fork, studying the perfectly cooked eggs without appetite. He wasn't wrong. Did you love him? I thought I did. But when he left, mostly I felt relief. Like I'd been caught in a play where I was reading someone else's lines. She took a bite. The omelet was delicious. God, this is good. Told you. Marcus ate with the same focused efficiency he seemed to bring to everything. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think before you answer. All right. What if saving the gallery isn't enough? Nora set down her fork. What do you mean? You're hemorrhaging money because of my construction. Yes. But from what you told me last night, you were barely breaking even before that. Marcus turned to face her fully. Your business model is unsustainable. You're charging below market rates to support emerging artists, which is noble but not profitable. And you're doing everything yourself: curator, marketer, bookkeeper, social media manager. You're one person trying to do 5 jobs. I can't afford to hire help. Exactly. So even if I fix the access issues and send compensation, you're looking at maybe 6 more months before you're back in the same position. His eyes held sympathy but also challenge. What if the gallery as it exists now is already dead? What would you build instead? The question hit like a fist to the sternum. Nora felt her carefully constructed defenses slam into place. I'm not giving up on my father's dream. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking what your dream is. They're the same thing. Are they? Marcus reached over and turned her stool to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Nora, I watched my parents sacrifice everything for their vision of what my life should be. Medical school, marriage to a nice Chinese girl, a respectable career, and for years I lived that life because I thought that's what loving them meant. Honoring their dreams. But you didn't become a doctor. No. I dropped out of medical school, started Chen Development with $50,000 in student loan debt, and didn't speak to my parents for 2 years. His voice roughened. They were devastated. But I couldn't keep living someone else's story. Even someone I loved. Nora felt the truth of his words settle in her chest like stones. Your parents must be proud now. You've built an empire. They came around eventually, but only after they realized I was happier building my empire than I ever would have been following their path. He squeezed her shoulders lightly. What would make you happy? Not your father. You. She wanted to snap back an easy answer, but Marcus's steady gaze made lying impossible. I don't know, she whispered. I've been trying to save the gallery for so long, I've forgotten why I wanted it in the first place. Then maybe it's time to remember. They finished breakfast in contemplative silence. Nora helped Marcus clean up, and the domesticity of it, rinsing plates, loading the dishwasher side by side, felt more intimate than last night's kisses. I should go, she said finally. Face reality. Before you do. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. I'm sending you my assistant's direct number. Laura will coordinate the access improvements and calculate fair compensation. She'll call you today. Marcus, also, I want to see your gallery. Tonight, if you're free. I'd like to understand what I've been destroying. You don't have to. I want to. He stepped closer, and her breath caught. Last night wasn't just business for me, Nora. I need you to know that. It was insane, she said again, but this time it sounded less like panic and more like wonder. The best things always are. Marcus leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet. 7 o'clock? Give me your address. Nora should say no. Should establish boundaries, keep things professional. They'd already crossed so many lines. But that small voice whispered, "What's the harm?" She gave. Tell him the address. Chapter 3. Truth in Canvas. Nora spent the entire day in a state of controlled panic. Laura Chen, no relation to Marcus, she'd clarified on their phone call, was terrifyingly efficient. By noon, there were new signs directing traffic around the construction zone. By 2, a work crew had cleared the sidewalk in front of the gallery and pressure-washed 3 years of grime off the windows. By 4, Laura had emailed a compensation proposal that made Nora's eyes water. It was enough to cover 2 months of rent and replenish her emergency fund. This is too much, Nora protested when she called Laura back. Mr. Chen was very specific about fair compensation. Laura's voice was crisp and professional. He reviewed your correspondence history. You contacted us 9 months ago when the project began. We should have responded then. Consider this restitution for our oversight. Oversight. As if ignoring her hadn't been intentional, but Nora was too practical to turn down help, even if it came wrapped in guilt. She accepted the terms and spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make the gallery presentable. The Hartley Gallery occupied the ground floor of a converted brownstone in what had once been the city's art district. High ceilings, exposed brick, and her father's architectural photographs lining one wall. The main gallery space showcased rotating exhibitions, currently a series of abstract paintings by a young artist named Teresa Wolfe, who painted her experience with synesthesia. Nora loved Teresa's work. The paintings translated sound into color, music into movement. They were challenging and beautiful and exactly the kind of art her father would have championed. They were also the kind of art that took time to understand, time that construction-avoiding customers didn't have. She was adjusting the lighting on Teresa's centerpiece, a massive canvas that captured the experience of hearing a symphony when the gallery door chimed. Marcus stood in the entrance, and Nora's heart did a complicated stutter step. He wore dark jeans and a leather jacket over a simple white shirt, managing to look both casual and expensive. His eyes swept the space, taking in every detail with the same focused attention he'd given her this morning. "Hi," she said, suddenly nervous. "Hi." He crossed to her in 3 long strides and kissed her cheek, casual and intimate, as if they'd been doing this for years instead of less than 24 hours. "Sorry I'm late. Conference call ran long." "You're not late. I'm just..." She gestured vaguely at the painting. "I wanted everything to be perfect. Nora." Marcus tilted her chin up. "Breathe. It's just me. Just him. Just the billionaire she'd spent last night tangled up with. Just the man who'd asked her the most terrifying question she'd ever heard. What would make you happy? Right. Okay." She stepped back, needing distance to think. "So, welcome to the Hartley Gallery." For the next hour, Nora gave Marcus the tour she'd given to hundreds of visitors before, but this time felt different. He didn't just look at the art, he engaged with it, asked questions about Teresa's process, the theory behind synesthesia, why Nora had chosen to showcase this particular series. "Because she sees the world differently," Nora explained, standing in front of the symphony painting. "And she's brave enough to share that vision, even though most people don't understand it. That's what my father believed art should do, show us new ways of seeing. Like his Urban Shadows series," Marcus said. "He photographed the same street corners at different times of day, different seasons. I never understood why until I bought all 3 pieces and hung them in sequence. Suddenly I could see how one place contains infinite variations, how context changes everything." Nora's throat tightened. That's exactly what he wanted people to understand. He was a hell of an artist. Marcus moved to the wall of her father's ally. Photographs, images Nora had curated herself. "You have his eye. I'm not an artist. No, you're something better. You're the person who helps others see what artists create." He turned to her. That's a gift too. She'd never thought of it that way. Had always felt like the failure, the daughter who couldn't paint or draw, or create anything herself, who could only arrange other people's visions. "Can I show you something?" she asked suddenly. "Anything." Nora led him to the back office, a cluttered space that served as storage, workshop, and her personal crisis command center. But on one wall, protected by cloth, hung 3 paintings she'd never shown anyone. "These were supposed to be my father's next series," she said, carefully removing the cloth. "He finished them 2 weeks before he died. I found them in his studio." The paintings, because her father had been experimenting with acrylics in his final years, were unlike anything else he'd created. Where his photographs captured reality in all its gritty detail, these paintings were pure emotion. Swirls of color that suggested faces, places, feelings, but never quite resolved into concrete form. "They're about loss," Nora said quietly. "He knew he was dying. Heart disease ran in his family. He didn't tell me, but he knew." Marcus stood silent for a long moment, studying each painting with absolute focus. "They're extraordinary. They're unsellable. Too personal, too raw. I can't imagine anyone wanting to live with them." "I would." Marcus looked at her. "If you were ever willing to part with them. They're not for sale. I know. But I wanted you to understand these paintings. This is the kind of work that changes people, that stays in your bones long after you've walked away." He moved closer, and his voice dropped. "You said you didn't know what would make you happy. But Nora, you've surrounded yourself with art that challenges and transforms and demands to be felt. That tells me exactly who you are." "Who am I?" The question came out as a whisper. "Someone brave enough to feel everything. You just forgot for a while." The truth of it hit her like a wave. Since her father's death, since James's departure, she'd been running on logic and planning and careful control. Anything to avoid the grief, the fear, the overwhelming uncertainty of building a life alone. But last night she'd let herself feel. And it had been terrifying and wonderful and exactly what she'd needed. "Marcus," she started, not sure what she wanted to say. He kissed her before she could finish. This kiss was different from the wild passion of last night. It was slower, deeper, full of the intimacy of having been seen and accepted anyway. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "Come to dinner with me. We just had breakfast together." "That was this morning. I'm talking about dinner. Tomorrow night. Somewhere nice where I can pretend I know how to date like a normal person." "You want to date me?" Nora's heart hammered. "I want to know everything about you. Where you grew up, what you read, whether you're a morning person or a night owl, if you like jazz or classical or punk rock." He brushed his thumb across her lower lip. "I want more than one insane night. I want the chance to see where this goes. This is moving really fast," says the woman who spent last night in my bed. "We didn't." She stopped, flustered. "You know what I mean." "I do. And you're right. This is fast. We barely know each other." Marcus stepped back slightly, giving her space to think. "But I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, maybe ever. So I'm asking, can we try? Real dates, actual conversations, getting to know each other like normal people?" Normal people. As if anything about this was normal. But when Nora looked at Marcus, really looked at him, she saw the same uncertainty she felt. He was taking a risk too, putting himself out there, despite not knowing how she'd respond. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Yes, dinner tomorrow. Real date. I'll even wear something other than gallery clothes." Marcus's smile could have lit the city. "It's a date." They spent another hour in the gallery. Marcus insisted on buying one of Teresa's smaller pieces over Nora's protests that he didn't need to, and left his contact information for when the artist delivered it. He asked smart questions about her business model, gently probing at the weak points without making her feel defensive. "You need help," he said finally. "Not money. People. Someone to handle your marketing. Someone to manage your books. You're drowning in operational tasks instead of focusing on what you're good at, curating and relationship building. I can't afford staff. Not full-time. But there are grant programs for arts organizations. Partnerships with business schools where students need internship experience. Creative solutions that don't require massive capital. You've been thinking about this. Since breakfast." Marcus leaned against her desk, arms crossed. "I meant what I said this morning. I want to help. Not as the guy who destroyed your business, but as someone who sees what you're trying to build and believes it matters." Nora studied him, this complicated man who'd crashed into her life with the force of a hurricane. Yesterday she'd hated him. Today she was falling for him. Insane. "I'll think about it," she said. "The help, the grants, all of it. That's all I ask." He checked his watch and grimaced. "I need to go. Early meeting tomorrow with investors who think 7 a.m. is a reasonable time for human interaction." "Monsters." Agreed. Marcus pulled her close for one more kiss, brief, sweet, promising. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. You don't know where I live. I'll text you for the address." He was already heading for the door, that restless energy returning, but he paused at the threshold. "Nora, last night wasn't a mistake. Neither is this." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with racing thoughts in a gallery that suddenly felt less like a prison and more like a possibility. Chapter 4. Complications. The thing about falling for someone, Nora discovered over the next 2 weeks, was that it made everything else simultaneously better and worse. Better because Marcus was incredible. Attentive without being smothering, interesting without being pretentious, wealthy without being careless about it. Their first official date had turned into 3 hours of conversation at an intimate Italian restaurant where the owner greeted Marcus by name. Their second date, a jazz club where a friend of his was performing, had ended with dancing and the kind of kissing that made her forget her own name. By date 5, Nora had admitted to Sasha that she was seeing someone. By date 7, she'd let Marcus back into her apartment, a tiny one-bedroom above a bookstore, and hadn't kicked him out until morning. The gallery was thriving. With proper access and Marcus's compensation, customers returned. Teresa's exhibition had sold 3 more pieces. Nora had even hired a part-time assistant, a business student named Jamie, who handled her social media and bookkeeping with terrifying efficiency. Everything should have been perfect. Except Marcus's construction project, the Valencia Street development, was destroying more than just Nora's business. She discovered this on a Tuesday morning when an elderly woman walked into the gallery holding a newspaper clipping. "You're Nora Hartley?" the woman asked. She was small, elegant, with silver hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I am. Welcome to the gallery. I'm Dorothy Chen. I believe you know my grandson Marcus." The world tilted. Nora had known Marcus's last name was Chen, obviously, but he'd never mentioned other family in the city, never mentioned a grandmother. "Mrs. Chen." Nora recovered quickly, extending her hand. "It's lovely to meet you." Dorothy's handshake was firm. "Is it? Even after you see this?" She placed the newspaper clipping on the counter. The headline read, "Historic Chen family building facing demolition for luxury development." Nora's stomach dropped. "I don't understand." "The Valencia Street project." Dorothy's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "The building Marcus is tearing down belonged to his grandfather. My late husband brought his family to this country with nothing, and bought that building with money he saved working 3 jobs. He ran his tailor shop there for 40 years. After he died, Marcus's father leased it to other small businesses. Immigrant families, mostly. People trying to build something like we did." "I didn't know," Nora whispered. "Why would you? Marcus doesn't talk about it. Doesn't talk about how he bought the building from his father 5 years ago, promising to preserve it. How he assured those families they'd have affordable commercial space in perpetuity." Dorothy's eyes glittered with unshed tears. "Then last year he announced the development, gave everyone 6 months to vacate. Most of those businesses couldn't afford to relocate. They closed." Nora felt sick. "Mrs. Chen, I'm not here to make you feel guilty. You're not responsible for my grandson's choices." Dorothy straightened her shoulders. "But I wanted you to know who you're involved with. Marcus is brilliant, charming, and capable of extraordinary cruelty when it serves his interests. He broke his father's heart, destroyed his grandfather's legacy, all for profit. There must be more to the story. There always is." Dorothy moved toward the door, then paused. "My grandson is good at making people believe he's the hero of his own story. Just remember, every hero is someone else's villain." After she left, Nora stood frozen in the gallery, the newspaper clipping burning in her hand. She thought about Marcus's confession that he'd disappointed his parents. She'd assumed it was about choosing business over medicine, not about destroying family history for luxury condos. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus, lunch today? I'm craving that Thai place you mentioned." Nora stared at the message. Yesterday she would have said yes immediately. Today she didn't know what to say. "Can't. Busy day. Rain check. Everything okay?" "Fine. Just swamped." The lie tasted bitter. But she needed time to think, to understand what Dorothy's visit meant. She spent the afternoon researching. The Valencia Street project was even bigger than she'd realized, a mixed-use development that would transform an entire city block. High-end retail, luxury apartments, a boutique hotel, the kind of development that drove up property values and pushed out longtime residents. The kind of development that made billionaires richer and working families homeless. Marcus called at 3. She let it go to voicemail. He called again at 5. She silenced her phone. By 7, he was at her apartment door. "You're avoiding me," he said when she opened it. No preamble, no pretense. "I'm not Nora." His voice was gentle but firm. "I know when I'm being ghosted. What happened?" She wanted to lie, to pretend everything was fine and deal with this internal crisis privately. But Marcus had been right weeks ago. She was terrible at pretending. "Your grandmother came to see me today." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something shuddered behind his eyes. "I see. Why didn't you tell me the Valencia Street project was built on your family's property?" "Because it's complicated." That's not an answer. Marcus stepped into her apartment. She hadn't invited him. But he came anyway and moved to the window overlooking the street. "My grandfather died when I was 15. Left everything to my father, the building, the business, all of it. But my father, he's not a businessman. He's an idealist. Kept the rents low, let tenants slide on payments, ran the property at a loss for years. That's called generosity. That's called unsustainable." Marcus turned to face her. 5 years ago, the building was falling apart. Foundation issues, electrical problems, plumbing that dated to the 1960 seconds. It needed $500,000 in renovations just to meet code. My father didn't have that kind of money. "So you bought it from him?" I saved it from foreclosure. The bank was circling. My father was going to lose everything, the building, his savings, his dignity. Marcus's voice hardened. I bought the property for twice what it was worth and gave him enough to retire comfortably. I tried to renovate, but the structural issues were worse than anyone realized. The building was unsalvageable. And the tenants? I gave them a year's notice, not 6 months. Helped several relocate, offered buyouts to others. He moved closer, and Nora saw the frustration in his eyes. I wasn't the villain in this story, Nora. I was the one who tried to fix an impossible situation. Your grandmother doesn't see it that way. My grandmother sees my grandfather in every brick of that building. She can't be objective. Marcus reached for her hand, but Nora stepped back. Neither can you, apparently. What's that supposed to mean? You're looking for reasons to sabotage this. Us. His voice was quiet but cutting. Things are getting real between us, and you're scared. So the moment you get a reason to doubt me, even a questionable one, you're running. The accusation stung because it was partially true. Things with Marcus had progressed terrifyingly fast. She'd let him into her life, her gallery, her bed, had started imagining a future that included him. And the idea of losing him or being destroyed by him terrified her. I'm not running, she said. Then what are you doing? I'm trying to understand who you are. Nora's voice rose. 3 weeks ago you were the villain destroying my business. Then you became this amazing man who understands me better than anyone ever has. Now I find out you demolished your family's legacy for profit, for survival. Marcus's composure cracked. God, Nora, do you think I wanted to tear down my grandfather's building? It killed me. Every day of that demolition felt like erasing him, but I had a choice: preserve a crumbling monument to the past, or build something that could serve the future. I chose the future. At what cost? At every cost. He moved to her, cupping her face in his hands. You think I don't know what I've sacrificed? My family barely speaks to me. My father looks at me like I'm a stranger. My grandmother, who raised me half my childhood, won't return my calls. I've built an empire and lost everything that mattered in the process. Tears burned Nora's eyes. Then why do it? Because sometimes loving people means making choices they hate. Sometimes honoring the past means destroying it so something new can grow. His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. My grandfather came to this country with nothing and built a life through sheer will. I'm doing the same thing, just on a different scale. He'd understand that, even if my grandmother doesn't. You don't know that. No, Marcus agreed. I don't. Just like you don't know if keeping your father's gallery exactly as he left it honors his memory or traps you in the past. The words hit like a physical blow. Nora jerked away from him. That's not fair. Isn't it? Marcus's voice softened. I'm not saying you should close the gallery. I'm saying you're so focused on preserving what was, you can't see what could be. You're living in your father's dream instead of building your own. And you think destroying your grandfather's building made you free? She heard the cruelty in her voice but couldn't stop. You're not free, Marcus. You're alone. You've traded family for success, and now you don't have either. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Marcus's face went carefully blank, the expression of someone who'd just been hit exactly where it hurt most. You're right, he said quietly. I am alone. I thought maybe. He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter what I thought. He moved toward the door, and panic seized Nora's chest. Marcus, wait. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. And maybe you should figure out if you meant it because you believe it, or because you're looking for an excuse to push me away before I can hurt you. Then he left, and Nora was alone with her anger and her fear and the terrible certainty that she'd just made a catastrophic mistake. Chapter 5. Parallel Wounds. Nora didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bed where Marcus had slept beside her just 3 days ago and replayed the fight on an endless loop. You're alone. God, what had she been thinking? She'd taken his deepest vulnerability and weaponized it, had proven every fear he'd never quite voiced that opening up to her would only give her ammunition to hurt him. She called him at 2 a.m. It went to voicemail. She texted at 3 a.m. I'm sorry. Can we talk? By 4 a.m., still no response. At 6 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went to the gallery. Work had always been her refuge, and she threw herself into preparing for the next exhibition, a showcase of emerging photographers that would have made her father proud. Jamie arrived at 9, took one look at her face, and made coffee without asking. Boy trouble? The younger woman asked, setting a steaming mug on Nora's desk. Is it that obvious? You're wearing mismatched socks and there's paint in your hair. Jamie settled into her chair. Want to talk about it? Nora surprised herself by saying yes. She told Jamie everything, meeting Marcus. The whirlwind romance, Dorothy's visit, the fight. By the end, her coffee was cold and Jamie was looking at her with something between sympathy and exasperation. Okay, I'm going to say something you're not going to like, Jamie said. Go ahead, I deserve it. You're both right, and you're both wrong. Jamie leaned forward. He was right that you're scared of letting him in. But you were also right that he's carrying massive guilt about his family. The question is whether you can accept his choices and whether he can accept your fear. I don't know if he'll even talk to me again. Then you go to him. Show up at his office, his home, wherever. Prove you're not running anymore. It was sound advice. It was also terrifying. But Nora had built a business on taking risks with art that challenged people. Maybe it was time to take the same risk with her heart. She closed the gallery early and took a cab to Chen Development's headquarters, a gleaming tower of steel and glass in the financial district. The lobby was all modern art and intimidating security. I'm here to see Marcus Chen, she told the receptionist. Do you have an appointment? No, but what was she? His girlfriend? They'd never defined it. I'm Nora Hartley. He knows me. The receptionist made a call, listened, then shook her head. Mr. Chen isn't available. Please, it's important. I'm sorry, Miss Hartley, Mr. Chen left instructions that he's not to be disturbed today. The polite dismissal felt like a door slamming. Nora stood in the lobby, uncertain what to do next. Nora? She turned to find Laura Marcus's assistant emerging from the elevators with an armful of file folders. Laura, hi. I was trying to see Marcus, but he's in back-to-back meetings all day. Laura's expression was sympathetic. But between you and me, he's been in a foul mood since last night, snapped at 3 people and canceled his afternoon appointments. So he was here, just avoiding her. Can you give him a message? Nora asked. Of course. Tell him I was wrong about what I said, and that I'd like to understand his story, all of it, if he'll let me. Laura smiled. I'll tell him. But the day passed with no response. So did the next day, and the next. By Friday, Nora was alternating between righteous anger and crushing guilt. Marcus was being childish, refusing to even acknowledge her apology. But she'd also said something unforgivable, and maybe he needed space to decide if he could forgive her. She was cataloging new inventory when Sasha burst through the gallery door, looking uncharacteristically serious. We need to talk, Sasha said. If this is about Marcus. It's not. Well, it is, but not how you think. Sasha pulled out her phone and showed Nora a news article. This dropped an hour ago. The headline read, Chen Development faces lawsuit over displacement of immigrant businesses. Nora's blood ran cold as she read. A coalition of former Valencia Street tenants had filed suit against Marcus, claiming he'd misrepresented his intentions when purchasing the building, had failed to provide adequate relocation assistance, and had deliberately pushed out minority-owned businesses to make way for luxury development. The article included quotes from Dorothy Chen, who called her grandson a man who chose profit over people. Oh God, Nora whispered. There's more. Sasha scrolled down. Someone leaked internal emails suggesting Marcus knew about the structural problems before he bought the building. That he planned the demolition from the start. That's not Nora stopped. Was it true? Had Marcus lied to her about trying to save the building? Her phone rang. Marcus's name lit up the screen. She answered immediately. Marcus, don't believe everything you read. His voice was tight with anger. Those emails are taken out of context. I had engineers assess the building before purchase. That's standard due diligence. Yes, I knew there were problems. No, I didn't plan to demolish it until I understood how extensive the damage was. I believe you. Do you? The skepticism in his voice hurt. Because 3 days ago, you accused me of destroying my family for profit. I was angry and scared, and I said things I didn't mean. Nora closed her eyes. Marcus, I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I should have trusted you. Silence stretched between them. Then, I need to go. My lawyers are waiting. Can I see you? After this is handled? I don't know, Nora. I really don't know. The line went dead. Sasha took the phone from her shaking hands. He'll come around. What if he doesn't? Then he's an idiot. Sasha pulled her into a hug. But for what it's worth, I think he will. The man I've seen you with these past weeks isn't someone who gives up easily. Nora wanted to believe that, but she'd seen the hurt in Marcus's eyes during their fight, heard the resignation in his voice just now. She'd wounded something fragile between them, and she didn't know if it could heal. Chapter 6. Public Wounds. The lawsuit dominated the news cycle for the next week. Nora watched from the sidelines as Marcus became the villain of a very public story, the ruthless billionaire who'd betrayed his family and destroyed an immigrant community for profit. It didn't matter that the building had been genuinely unsalvageable. Didn't matter that he'd provided relocation assistance. The narrative was too perfect, too aligned with every stereotype about wealthy developers. And Dorothy Chen was the star witness, her testimony given the weight of wounded family crying for justice. Nora tried calling Marcus twice more. Both times went to voicemail. She sent one text. I'm here if you need me. I believe you. No response. She threw herself into work, but even the gallery felt hollow. She'd gotten used to Marcus stopping by unexpectedly, bringing coffee and asking about her newest acquisitions, had gotten used to his texts throughout the day, his dry observations about difficult clients and construction delays, had gotten used to being with someone who saw her completely and didn't flinch. On Tuesday evening, Sasha dragged her to a charity gala, the kind of event where the city's elite paid $1,000 a plate to feel good about their wealth. You can't hide forever, Sasha had said. Besides, you look like you haven't slept in a week. Get dressed up, drink expensive wine. Remember you're alive. So Nora wore the one cocktail dress she owned, simple black, probably outdated, and let Sasha's stylist do something with her hair. She felt like a fraud among the designer gowns and statement jewelry, but Sasha's hand on her arm kept her grounded. Until she saw Marcus across the ballroom. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent, talking to a group of older men in the serious, focused way that meant business. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes, new tension in his shoulders. He looked like a man at war. Do you want to leave? Sasha whispered. Nora should say yes. Should maintain her distance and let him heal without her presence complicating things. But she'd spent 3 weeks learning to be braver. No, she said. I want to talk to him. She made her way across the ballroom, heart hammering, acutely aware of the curious stares following her. By now, people knew she was connected to Marcus. There'd been a few gossip column mentions about the mysterious gallery owner he'd been dating. Marcus saw her coming. Something flickered across his face, surprise, pain, want before his expression went carefully neutral. Gentlemen, excuse me, he said to his companions, then met her halfway across the room. Nora. Hi. God, she'd missed him. Missed his voice. His presence. The way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person in any room. Can we talk? This isn't a good time. I know, but I need you to hear something. She took a breath. I was wrong. About everything I said during our fight. You're not alone because you're cruel or heartless. You're alone because you make impossible choices and refuse to let anyone share the burden. Nora, I'm not finished. Her voice strengthened. I spent 3 weeks falling for you, learning how brilliant and complicated and surprisingly kind you are. Then I got scared because everything was moving so fast and feeling so real. So when your grandmother gave me a reason to doubt you, I took it. I let fear turn me into someone who hurts the people She stopped, the word catching in her throat. Marcus's eyes had gone very dark. Finish that sentence. Someone who hurts the people she cares about. It wasn't the word she'd almost said, but it was true enough. I care about you, Marcus, and I'm sorry I made you doubt that. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he took her hand and led her out of the ballroom, through a side door, onto a terrace overlooking the city lights. You hurt me, he said quietly. I've had a lot of people call me ruthless, cold, calculating, but hearing it from you, he shook his head, it was different. I know. And I'm so sorry. The thing is, you weren't entirely wrong. Marcus leaned against the railing, and the admission seemed to cost him. I am alone. I've made choices that prioritized business over relationships. I've disappointed people I love, and some days I wonder if the empire I built was worth the cost. Was it? I don't know anymore. He looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her ache. But meeting you made me want something different. Made me think maybe I could have both the business and someone to share it with. Then you looked at me like I was the villain, and I remembered why I stopped trying to have both. Nora moved to stand beside him. What if you don't have to choose? What if you could build something new, a life that includes both your work and the people who matter? Is that what you want? To matter to me? Yes. The word came without hesitation. I want to matter. I want to be someone you trust with your worst days and your biggest fears. I want to be the person who sees all your complications and stays anyway, even though I destroyed a building my grandfather loved. Even though. Because you did it for complex reasons I'm only beginning to understand, and because I trust that you agonized over that choice in ways your grandmother will never know. Marcus turned to face her fully. The lawsuit is going to get worse before it gets better. My family's going to testify against me. The media is going to paint me as a monster. Dating me right now means standing in that storm. I know. It means dealing with my absurd schedule, my workaholic tendencies, and the fact that I'm terrible at expressing feelings that don't come with a business plan attached. I know that too. And you still want this. Want me? Nora reached up and cupped his face, feeling the slight rasp of stubble, the tension in his jaw. I want this. I want you. Even though it's insane. Marcus's smile was slow and devastating. The best things always are. Then he kissed her the way he had that first night, hungry and certain, like he'd been starving for her. Nora kissed him back with 3 weeks of longing and regret and fierce determination to get this right. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I missed you, he said. I missed you too. So much. Come home with me tonight? I thought you'd never ask. They stayed on the terrace a few minutes longer, holding each other while the city sparkled below. Inside, the gala continued without them, all those important people making important connections. But out here, it was just Nora and Marcus, 2 people who'd found each other despite the odds. 2 people brave enough to choose each other, even when it was insane. Chapter 7. Building Forward. The lawsuit lasted 3 months and took years off both their lives. Nora watched Marcus transform under the pressure. The playful, spontaneous man who'd swept her off her feet became harder, more focused. He worked 18-hour days, gave countless depositions, and battled not just the plaintiffs but his own family's betrayal. Dorothy's testimony was devastating. She painted Marcus as cold and mercenary, someone who'd manipulated his own father to acquire the building. The media ate it up, the story was too perfect, the drama too compelling. But Nora stood beside him through all of it. She attended hearings when she could get away from the gallery. She held him on the nights when the weight of it all threatened to crush him. She learned to navigate his moods, the brittle anger, the exhausted silence, the rare moments of vulnerability when he'd admit how much it hurt to be villainized by people he loved. I didn't know you could be this stubborn, Marcus said one night, 3 months into the ordeal. They were in his penthouse, takeout containers scattered across the coffee table, legal briefs covering every available surface. I'm discovering depths of stubbornness I didn't know I had, Nora admitted. She was curled against his side on the couch, his arm around her shoulders. Turns out I'm very invested in your happiness. Why? The question was quiet, almost hesitant. I'm a terrible boyfriend. I cancel dates, forget to call, drag you into my disasters. You're not dragging me. I'm choosing to be here. She tilted her head to look at him. Do you really not understand why? Honestly, no. You could have any guy. Someone with normal working hours and no lawsuits. Someone your friends wouldn't side-eye when you mention him. Sasha adores you. Sasha's the exception. Marcus's hand tightened on her shoulder. Everyone else looks at me like I'm going to corrupt you. Nora couldn't entirely argue. Her small circle of friends had been skeptical when she'd explained who she was dating, and the looks she got when they appeared together in public, especially after the lawsuit became news, ranged from pitying to judgmental. I don't care what they think, she said. I care about you. About the man who bought Teresa's painting not because he had to, but because he genuinely loved it. About the guy who spent 2 hours helping me reorganize my storage room even though you had a meeting at 6 a.m. About the person who listens when I talk about my father and doesn't try to fix it, just holds space for my grief. Nora, I'm in love with you. The words came out simply, without drama or calculation. Just truth. I probably have been since you kissed me that first night and made me feel brave enough to be spontaneous. I love you, Marcus. Lawsuits and all. He stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Then, very quietly, "Say that again." "I love you. God." He pulled her fully into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me." They held each other for a long time, the legal briefs forgotten. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, they built something new, a partnership forged in crisis, but rooted in choice. "We're going to get through this," Nora whispered against his hair. "Together," Marcus agreed, and they did. The lawsuit settled 2 weeks later. Marcus agreed to establish a fund for displaced businesses, more money than the plaintiffs had requested, and to dedicate 10% of the Valencia Street development to affordable commercial space. He also created a scholarship program in his grandfather's name for children of immigrants pursuing business degrees. It wasn't an admission of guilt. It was Marcus choosing to build something good from the wreckage. Dorothy refused to reconcile. So did his father. But Marcus's mother, quiet, gentle Ming Chen, reached out with a tentative lunch invitation. "She wants to meet you," Marcus told Nora, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. "Me?" She said, "Anyone who could make me smile during the worst months of my life deserves to be family." Nora's throat tightened. "Then I'd love to meet her." The lunch was awkward and wonderful. Ming was. Nothing like Nora expected, warm where she'd anticipated judgment, curious where she'd feared criticism. She asked about the gallery, about Nora's father, about how they'd met. "He's different with you," Ming said after Marcus excused himself to take a call. "Softer, more like the boy he used to be before he decided he had to conquer the world." "He's still trying to conquer the world," Nora said with a smile. "But now he lets me come along. Good." Ming reached across the table and squeezed her hand. He needs someone who doesn't let him hide, who sees the person behind the success. When Marcus returned, he found them laughing over stories of his childhood, his disastrous attempt at cooking dinner for his parents, his brief teenage rebellion involving terrible hair dye. "Are you conspiring against me?" he asked, but his eyes were warm. "Absolutely," Nora and Ming said in unison. The months that followed were a study in building life together. They navigated Marcus's impossible schedule and Nora's gallery demands. They had fights about his tendency to work through dinner and her habit of bringing problems home instead of delegating. They learned each other's rhythms, needs, fears, and slowly, Nora's gallery transformed. With Marcus's encouragement and Jamie's help, she hired an assistant curator and a part-time business manager. She applied for grants and won several. She partnered with local universities to create internship programs. But the biggest change came when she hung her father's final paintings, the ones she'd thought were too raw to share in a special exhibition titled Legacy and Loss. The opening was small, intimate. Marcus stood beside her as collectors and artists and friends moved through the space, studying the emotional landscapes David Hartley had created in his final days. "He'd be proud," Marcus murmured. "I think he'd be surprised." Nora looked at the paintings, still painful, still beautiful. "I was so focused on preserving his legacy exactly as he left it, but he never wanted that. He wanted me to build my own. Like someone else I know." Marcus's arm wrapped around her waist. "We're both learning to honor the past without being trapped by it." 3 paintings sold that night to Marcus's mother, who said they reminded her of her own father's journey. The rest Nora kept, but she no longer felt like their guardian. She felt like their curator, sharing them with a world that needed to see them. That night, tangled together in Marcus's bed, Nora felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked sleepily. "That I'm glad I went to that diner. Glad Sasha dragged me to Quantum. Glad I was brave enough to kiss you back. Best decision you ever made. Second best." Nora propped herself up to look at him. "The best was choosing to stay, to fight for us when it got hard." Marcus pulled her down for a kiss that started gentle and quickly deepened. "We're getting pretty good at fighting for things." "We are," she agreed. "Maybe we should keep practicing." Chapter 8. Unexpected Foundations. 6 months after the lawsuit settled, Marcus received an unexpected visitor at his office. Nora was there. They'd started having lunch together twice a week, a small ritual that kept them connected despite their crazy schedules. When Laura buzzed through. "Mr. Chen? Your grandmother is here." Marcus's face went blank. Nora reached across his desk and took his hand. Do you want me to leave? She asked quietly. No. His grip tightened. Stay, please. Dorothy Chen looked older than when Nora had seen her last. Still elegant, still sharp-eyed, but with new lines around her mouth and a heaviness to her shoulders. Marcus, she said. Then, nodding to Nora. Miss Hartley. Grandmother. Marcus stood but didn't move from behind his desk, a barrier. Nora realized. Protection. This is unexpected. I'm sure. It is. Dorothy settled into one of the visitor chairs with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime perfecting her posture. I came to apologize. Silence filled the office. Marcus sat slowly, as if afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. I've been angry with you for 5 years, Dorothy continued. Angry that you bought the building. Angry that you demolished it. Angry that you seemed to care more about profit than family. She folded her hands in her lap. But I realized something recently. I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at time, at loss, at the fact that your grandfather is gone and I can't get him back. Grandmother, let me finish. Her voice was firm but not unkind. The building was never the point. It was what the building represented, a life we built together, dreams we shared. When you tore it down, it felt like you were erasing him, erasing us. Marcus's throat worked. I never wanted to erase him. I wanted to honor what he built. I know that now. Dorothy's eyes glistened. Ming showed me the scholarship program, told me about the affordable commercial spaces in the new development, explained that you're using part of the profits to fund small business loans for immigrant entrepreneurs. It's what he would have wanted, Marcus said quietly. Not the building itself, but what it represented: opportunity, a foothold for people starting over. Yes, Dorothy's composure cracked slightly. He would have understood that. I should have too. Nora felt tears prick her own eyes as she watched Marcus struggle with his grandmother's words. The wound between them was old and deep, and healing wouldn't happen in one conversation. But this was a start. I testified against you, Dorothy said. Said terrible things in court. You believed them at the time. I should have asked you first. Should have trusted that my grandson, the boy who used to help his grandfather press suits and learned Cantonese so he could talk to customers, wouldn't betray his family without reason. She stood, and Marcus rose with her. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I was wrong. Marcus moved around the desk and, after a moment's hesitation, pulled his grandmother into a careful embrace. Dorothy's small frame shook as she finally let herself cry for her husband, for lost time, for the relationship with her grandson she'd nearly destroyed. I'm sorry too, Marcus said against her hair, for not explaining everything before I made the decision, for letting you find out through lawyers instead of family. They held each other for a long moment. Nora quietly wiped her own tears, feeling like she was witnessing something sacred. When Dorothy finally pulled back, she looked at Nora with new assessment. You've been good for him. He's been good for me too, Nora said. Ming told me about your gallery, about the exhibition honoring your father. Dorothy's expression softened. Losing a parent changes everything, makes you question who you are without them. Yes, Nora agreed. It does. Marcus lost his grandfather, and I think part of him has been trying to prove he's worthy of that legacy ever since. Dorothy looked at her grandson. But you don't need to prove anything. You already are. After Dorothy left, Marcus stood at his office windows, looking out at the city he'd helped reshape. Nora came to stand beside him. Are you okay? She asked. I don't know. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I spent 5 years believing she'd never forgive me, built walls around that wound. And now you get to heal. It's terrifying. Nora took his hand. The best things always are. He laughed, surprised and genuine. You're never going to let me forget I said that, are you? Never. She kissed his jaw. Besides, it's true. Everything worthwhile in my life has required being brave enough to feel insane. Like falling for a billionaire who destroyed your business? Like choosing to love him anyway. Marcus pulled her close, and they stood together watching the city transform in afternoon light. Somewhere below, the Valencia Street development was taking shape, a mix of luxury and affordable, profit and purpose. A compromise that honored the past while building the future. Just like them. Chapter 9. Full Circle. Nora woke on her 32nd birthday to an empty bed and the smell of burning toast. She smiled and pulled on Marcus's discarded shirt from the night before, padding barefoot into the penthouse kitchen to find him swearing at the smoke detector. Has porn. Happy birthday, he said sheepishly, waving a dish towel at the alarm. I was attempting breakfast in bed. It's going poorly. I can see that. She silenced the alarm and surveyed the damaged, charred bread, scrambled eggs that looked more like rubber, and something that might have once been bacon. How are you a billionaire who can't cook? I have people for this, usually. He abandoned the disaster and pulled her into his arms. But I wanted to do something personal. The thought counts. She kissed him, tasting coffee and determination. How about we order from that cafe you like? Deal. While Marcus called in their order, Nora noticed a small wrapped box on the counter. Simple silver paper, white ribbon. That's not breakfast related, Marcus said, returning to slide his arms around her waist from behind. Open it. Inside was a key old-fashioned brass, attached to a tag that read, Hartley Building, ground floor. Nora's heart stuttered. Marcus, what? Come with me. He drove them across the city, not to her gallery, but to a renovated brownstone 2 blocks away, bigger than her current space, with the same high ceilings and exposed brick but better light, more square footage, a loading dock, and a sign being installed above the door, the Hartley Center for Emerging Artists. I don't understand, Nora whispered. Marcus unlocked the front door and led her inside. The space was empty but beautiful rooms flowing into each other, perfect for galleries and studios and gathering spaces. Your gallery is great, Marcus said, but it's limited. 1 exhibition at a time, no room for classes or workshops, nowhere for artists to actually create. He gestured around them. This could be more. A gallery, yes, but also studio space you rent at subsidized rates. Classrooms for community art programs. A cafe where artists and collectors can meet. Everything your father dreamed of, but bigger. Nora couldn't speak. The vision was overwhelming, exactly what she'd wanted, but never dared to plan for. The building is mine, Marcus continued. Part of the Valencia Street project properties. I'm offering you a 10-year lease at your current rate, with an option to buy if you want. No strings attached. No strings? She found her voice. Marcus, this is too much. It's an investment. You've proven you can build a successful gallery. This is just a bigger canvas. He pulled her close. Unless you don't want it. I won't be offended if you'd rather keep things as they are. Nora looked around the space, imagining it filled with art and light and people. She thought about her father, about his dream of creating opportunities for artists who couldn't afford traditional gallery representation. Then she thought about Marcus's words from months ago. What would make you happy? I want it, she said. But not alone. You'll hire staff. No. I mean, yes, I'll hire staff. But I want you involved. A partner, not a landlord. She turned in his arms. You have an incredible eye for art. You understand business and development. And you believe in this vision as much as I do. Help me build it. Marcus looked stunned. I don't know anything about running a gallery. You know about building things from nothing. About taking risks. About turning impossible dreams into reality. She cupped his face. I want to build this with you. If you want that, too. I want that more than anything. They kissed in the empty building that would become their shared dream. A space built on trust, partnership, and the courage to imagine something bigger than either could create alone. The Hartley Center opened 6 months later to a crowd that overflowed onto the street. The first exhibition featured work from 12 emerging artists, painters, sculptors, photographers, textile artists. The studios upstairs housed 8 artists in residence. The classroom space ran free workshops twice a week. And on the wall near the entrance, 2 photographs hung side by side. David Hartley's self-portrait and a candid shot of Nora and Marcus at work, marking a new legacy. Dorothy Chen attended the opening with Ming. She spent an hour talking with artists, asking questions, buying a small abstract piece for her living room. Your grandfather would have loved this, she told Marcus, gesturing to the busy space. Not the building this, what you're creating. We're creating, Marcus corrected, pulling Nora close. None of this happens without her vision. No, Dorothy agreed, smiling at Nora. But none of it happens without you believing in that vision enough to make it real. As the evening wound down, Nora found herself on the small balcony off her office. Technically their office now, since Marcus had claimed the desk by the window. The city stretched below, lit up and alive. Marcus joined her, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. Successful opening. Beyond my wildest dreams, She accepted the glass and leaned into him. Thank you. For this. For everything. Thank you for letting me be part of it. He clinked his glass against hers, to insane decisions that turn into extraordinary lives, to the best things. They drank and watched the city, two people who'd found each other in chaos and chosen to build something beautiful from it. I have something else for you, Marcus said eventually. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Nora's heart stopped. Marcus, before you panic, let me say something. He took her free hand. A year ago, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You made me question what I was building and why. You made me want more than just success. You made me want connection, partnership, a life that matters beyond profit margins. Marcus, I know this is fast. I know we've only been together a year, but I also know I want to spend every year after this one with you, building things, taking risks, making each other brave enough to do the impossible. He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. Nora Hartley, will you marry me? She should have felt panicked, should have needed time to think, to calculate the logistics, to plan. But all she felt was certain. This is insane, she whispered. Marcus smiled, that devastating smile that had captivated her from the start. The best things always are. So what do you say? Nora looked at the man she loved, at the building they'd created together, at the life they were building one brave choice at a time. Yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. Epilogue. 2 years later. The wedding was small, just family and close friends in the gallery space they'd built together. Dorothy Chen cried through the entire ceremony. Ming read a poem in Cantonese that David Hartley had loved. Sasha served as maid of honor and gave a speech about Nora finally learning to be spontaneous. But the moment Nora would remember forever came during their first dance, when Marcus pulled her close and whispered, "No regrets?" She looked up at her husband, still strange to think the word, and smiled. Not a single one. Even though I'm still terrible at cooking? Even though I married you for your other qualities. Such as your ability to make me brave, your ridiculous competence at everything except breakfast, the way you look at art like you're seeing magic. She rested her head on his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and sure. The way you love me like I'm the best decision you ever made. You are, Marcus said simply. The absolute best. They swayed to music in the gallery, filled with art and light and people who'd watched them transform from wounded strangers into partners building something extraordinary. The Hartley Center had expanded twice in 2 years. They now supported 30 artists in residence, ran daily workshops, and had established partnerships with schools across the city. The affordable commercial spaces in Marcus's Valencia Street development housed 3 artist-owned businesses. Marcus's development company had shifted focus, still profitable, but now deliberately building projects that served communities rather than just displacing them. His father had started speaking to him again, slowly rebuilding trust. Dorothy volunteered at the center twice a week, telling stories about Marcus's grandfather to young artists building their own dreams. And Nora had finally stopped trying to preserve the past and started building the future. She still thought about her father, still missed him, but she'd learned to honor his memory by living fully rather than holding tight to what was gone. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked, the question that had become their private ritual. "That I'm glad I went to that diner. Glad I was desperate enough to confront you at Quantum. Glad I was brave enough to kiss you back. Brave enough to let me kiss you first," he corrected. "Details." She smiled against his shirt. "The point is, everything good in my life came from one insane moment when I stopped planning and started feeling. And now? Now I'm going to keep choosing the insane thing." She pulled back to look at him. "Which is probably why I haven't told you yet." "Told me what?" Nora took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "That in about 7 months, our lives are going to get even more chaotic." Marcus froze. Then his eyes went wide with wonder and terror and joy. "You're where?" "Yes. This is insane?" Nora supplied, laughing at his stunned expression. Marcus swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet despite her protests. "The best things always are," he said against her lips, and kissed her, while their friends cheered, and the gallery they'd built together echoed with love and laughter, and the promise of everything still to come. Outside, the city hummed with life, millions of stories unfolding, dreams being built and broken and rebuilt. But inside the Hartley Center, 2 people who'd found each other in chaos danced in the light they'd created together. Two people brave enough to believe that sometimes the craziest decisions lead to the most extraordinary lives. Two people who'd learned that the best things, love, partnership, family, dreams, always start with one insane moment of courage, and they were just getting started.